1. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the January 23rd, 2023 Council meeting. I'll ask everybody to please stand for O Canada.
Our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, to north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you to the Canada Film Board for those images and our hometown girl, Tennille Towns, for the vocals. You might have noticed I am not Mayor Clayton. Mayor Clayton is online attending this meeting along with Deputy Mayor Palat. But since it's difficult to chair a meeting when you're online, I was asked to chair this just since I'm closest on the Deputy Mayor roster right now. Our first order of business is adoption of previous minutes. And I see Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Bressie. I'd like to move that Council adopt the minutes of the City Council meeting held January 9th, 2023, as presented.
And that motion carries. Moving us on to adoption of agenda. And I have Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Bressie. I'd move that Council adopt the agenda as presented. Councillor Thiessen in favor. Sorry, the voting's not coming up.
It's okay. Great. That motion carries. And first up, we've got delegation business. So, Ms. Luman, I think I saw you online. Kind of what our habit here is if you just introduce yourself, we'll give you up to about 5 minutes to speak and share what you want to share, and then I'll turn it over to my council colleagues to see if anybody has any questions for you.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Please go ahead.
I'm hoping to ask that the urban hen limit be increased from 4 to 6, as more bodies would create more warmth during the winter to help the hens get through the winter without having to have that supplemental heat. Edmonton increased their limit to 6. I believe it took effect in September of 2019. I've spoken also with the Grande Prairie urban hens. They are not aware of any complaints to the city over any of the current hens that people have. With the cost of food and people are going back more so to gardening to be more self-sustaining, I believe we should kind of get more with the times in a sense. The fresh eggs are good also for our families, as well as we are able to teach our children where food comes from. They also get to learn that what we put in is what we get for the quality of our eggs and our food. A flock of 6 hens would reduce the food waste even further, in turn reducing the waste sent to the dump. So with us, we every time we have any food waste, we put into a bowl on the counter, and then at the end of the day or the beginning of the next day, we take our food out and give it to the hens. So we have almost zero food waste for what the hens can have. Our flock of 4 hens don't really produce enough eggs for our family personally. Even during the peak laying season of the summer, we are still going to the store to get a few eggs so that we can have enough. For us, adding 2 more hens, we would be able to get the step to the grocery store for eggs, which would help reduce our carbon footprint. And if smell is a concern or anything like that, there is less waste than a large breed dog. And there haven't been any complaints that we know of for smell, as we're responsible pet owners and we keep our coops clean. That's all I really have. If you guys have any questions.
Excellent. Well, definitely appreciate the presentation. I'll look around, and I've got Councillor Berg first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bressie. So, Hannah, just one quick question around the type of coop that you have. Can you describe what you have, and if you were to add 2 more chickens to it, would you have to make any modifications? And if so, could you describe that, please?
I would increase the limit, or sorry, not the limit, the size of my coop by, I believe, 2 feet. So then that way there would be enough for the minimum requirement, which my coop is bigger than needed already. It wouldn't take much to increase that for the way I built it. My run is the size that I would need for having an added 2 hens. I like to have bigger space than needed. My coop currently is I believe, 4.5 by 4.5 size. It's insulated by blue foam insulation, so I don't really have to have that supplemental heat, minus the extreme cold weather that we have had over the course of the past couple months.
Okay, you said 4.5 by 4.5. I'm assuming that it's somewhat of a cube. How tall would it be?
Currently, my coop is 4 feet tall. For hens, you don't have to have it more than, I believe, 1.5 feet tall. I like to have it taller, so then that way it's easier for the cleaning and for me to be able to maintain the cleanliness of my coop.
Okay, so just a quick point then, it would probably be shorter than your fence that your neighbors would see. And just another question, just out of curiosity, is it separate from your house or up against your house?
Separate. It's roughly about 30 feet from my house currently.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for answering those questions.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Councillor Bosch and then Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Councillor. It's weird not to say Mayor Clayton. I wonder if administration could answer how many people or residents subscribe to this program?
So I think that's, we're going to have delegation business later at the end of this,
Okay.
so maybe we'll save that for then and give them a little bit of time to chase that down, or that might be something we want to ask come to another committee, but I think if you're okay just parking that question for now.
Okay, fair enough. I'll wait for an answer from them. Thank you for coming to this council meeting.
Great. Councillor Blackmore.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Luman, for coming here today and talking to us. I just have a quick question about you, I believe, mentioned that there is a group of people in town who have hens and you kind of have an affiliation with each other?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just to confirm, your affiliation or your group, I think you call them, what did you call them?
The Grande Prairie Urban Hens Group.
So the Grande Prairie Urban Hens have never received any complaints from neighborhoods, or you've never received any complaints from your neighbors regarding the fact that you keep hens in your yard?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Excellent. And I'm not seeing anybody else in the queue, so I think that's all the questions we have for you. Kind of how our meeting works is we'll deal with your requests at the end of the meeting. So you're certainly welcome to turn off your camera and stick on this call to hear what's going on, or you can watch us streaming live on YouTube. Or if you've got other things to do this afternoon, there's no need to do that. I expect that a member of administration will follow up with you and let you know what came out of this meeting. So thank you for your time.
Okay.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So next on our agenda, we have Aquatera dividend declaration. I'm advised by CEO Nicolay that there isn't a staff report to accompany this, but there is a letter in your packet that shares what's being asked of council, and there certainly are staff available to answer questions if you have any questions. My apologies, Councillor Blackmore. You're on there for the last one. So is there a member of council that's got questions or is willing to conduct the business? Sorry, for the Aquatera dividend declaration. So we've got a recommendation to direct the mayor to sign the unanimous consent. All right. Councillor Thiessen.
Oh, I thought Councillor Blackmore beat me to it, but I would move that. Well, it looked like you did. I would move that council direct the mayor to sign the unanimous consent for discretionary dividends as requested by Aquatera Utilities on behalf of the city of Grande Prairie. Just speaking to this motion, this is an annual vote where Aquatera has their dividend, which is the profits that they determine based off of the percentage in our agreement with the shareholders that each party would get. I think the portion that the city would receive is about 3.9. I know it's in the package. I'm just going off of memory right now, but it's there. And it goes to help us pay for such valuable services as snow removal and other stuff in the community. And it's just, I think, an important thing to do that council gets together, talks about this, debates it if we need to, but most importantly, approves it so that we have that funding to go forward.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'm not seeing anybody asking to get in, so I will call this motion's question. Excellent. And that motion carries, which moves us on to the Operational Services Committee, and that's Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Councillor Bressie. I move that council adopt the minutes of the Operational Services Committee meeting held January 17th, 2023, as presented.
Excellent. And we'll call that to question. And do you have business arising?
We do. From that committee, there was a motion to move the following recommendations in implementing the stormwater utility structure on an impervious surface area fee model. Number one, that the utility will be a revenue neutral overall to the city and clearly reported annually upon implementation. The annual utility cost to customers would be offset by the equivalent property tax deductions. Do you guys want to do this all together in one?
I think you could do it all in one unless somebody requests to split it. So,
okay.
Maybe what I'll have you do is I'll have you move them and then we can split them out after you've moved them all, if somebody wants to move one out.
Okay. Number two, that the annual utility cost will be recovered through a uniform impervious area charge, dollars per meter squared based on the building footprint for the residential customers and impervious parcel area for the non-residential customers. Number three, that the exemptions to the utility charges will include agriculture and urban reserve land uses, undeveloped vacant land and parcels draining directly to Bear Creek or a natural drainage course without entering the storm drainage system. Number four, that exclusions from the utility charges include road right-of-way, public utility lots, park green spaces and playgrounds, cemeteries, and environmental reserves. Number five, that the annual utility cost to customers be offset by tax reduction that is uniformly applied to the same percentage across all property types. Number six, that the credit system be developed to incentivize measures taken beyond development permit requirements to reduce stormwater runoff or improve stormwater quality. And that, number seven, that a grant proposed to develop for tax-exempt properties that provide a municipal community benefit.
Thank you. I do have Councillor Blackmore first in the queue, but before I go to any general questions, and maybe this is you, Councillor Blackmore, but maybe the first thing I'll ask is if there's anybody that wants to split one of these off of the other. And I see Councillor Blackmore on your head, so I'll recognize her.
Yes, thank you, Chair Bressie. I would ask that Council separate number 7 off the list to be debated separately.
Yeah, definitely happy to do that. Is there anybody else that wants to split one off? Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I appreciate you stepping in for me while I'm away. I'd also ask at number 6, or maybe if I can ask just administration now before we split that out, what the intent of this is. I'm struggling with number 6 a little bit, so I'm not sure how you want to have it, if we want to split it out or if you want me to ask administration now or...
Yeah, maybe what we'll do is I'll get you to ask we'll ask administration now, and then I'll come back to you and ask if you want to split it out after you've heard the answer to your question. So I see Mr. Tarrant and Mr. Mann's moving up. And maybe we saw you at committee, but maybe you gentlemen can introduce yourselves just for the sake of people watching as well.
Baron Mans.
And Rory Tarrant.
Great. Thank you. So, yeah, Councillor Platt, what was your question?
I guess I'm just wondering, from somebody that's done developments and tried to be active with these, I'm just wondering how cumbersome this is to do this and if it's going to have any impact at all. And so I'm just wondering if this is something that instead of trying to develop this, is if we should just let it roll for a year. And then if we see issues, try to figure it out then. Because I'm not sure how this is actually going to physically work, and I'm not sure it's in the best interest of the city. So I'll give you an example, and maybe Rory or Mr. Mans can explain it to me. But if I'm understanding this right, if I decided I was going to, a proponent decides to do a 2-acre development, they're going to come in and we're going to try to show them options that might save them a little bit of taxes on this part of it. But if that means us reducing 4 parking stalls so that they can have more grass, and is that the best for the city? Like, I'm struggling with that, and I don't know what the implications even would have been on their taxes. If it's going to be enough to move the dial for people trying to reconfigure how they're making a lot work to just make this work. So can I just get maybe long story short, can I get the intent of why we think this is needed now and not something we could do in 6 months to a year after we've rolled the model out?
So that sounded like a more general about the whole thing, or was that about specifically point number 5, just in general, why the timing of this whole conversation right now is what you're asking?
Yeah, I don't see us needing to figure out how we incentivize something we haven't implemented yet. I guess for me, I'd like to see number 6 just fall to the wayside for now, and then in 6 months to a year after we've actually implemented this and ran it, then we start looking at ways. But I don't see this. I just feel like it's going to be a lot of work and exercise for administration to figure it out, and I don't even know how we'd implement it to safeguard the community. So is it better to wait after we've done this for a while than put it in now and try to figure out how this could look?
Mr. Tarrant, Mr. Mans, do either one of you want to take a stab at that?
I can, through the chair. There's certainly no reason why it has to be done immediately. The one caution would be that there are some properties that have gone over and above the existing development permits that may ask for a credit at this point. And if they're going to be charged the full amount for the impervious area and they have gone over and above, they may request a credit. And so that would be the one consideration why we'd maybe want to implement it right away. We don't anticipate there's going to be a rush of applications. There's not a significant number of properties that would be able to apply for these. And in our conversations with other municipalities that have had that have these credit systems in place, there's not significant numbers, and so it would be quite manageable if it was to be implemented right away. In terms of, there was a mention of if someone decides to reduce their impervious area, that would not be part of the credit system. That would just be part of the calculation for the impervious area. So that's not what the credit system would be for. Credit system is there for things that people could do that are over and above, such as implementing a bioswale, so that along the edge of their property you slow down the flow and the runoff, so that there's a slower release into the stormwater system. So that would be an additional that we don't require now. Another option is to implement oil and grit separators. So within your stormwater drains, that's within a parking lot, to have an oil and grit separator to reduce the amount of debris that gets actually sent to the stormwater system. So that's not required in all cases currently, and so you could possibly get a credit for that. As I said, not a significant number of properties that would be eligible currently, but that would be the council may see requests from several few properties to have that credit system upon implementation.
Go ahead, Councillor Platt.
So thanks, Chairman. I guess for me, I think we could park this. I think if we're talking about those kind of things, we should also be talking about what solar credits could look like if you pull a development permit. What if you decided to make your house use less water, less energy? Is there credits for that? Like, I think there's a lot of credits and incentives we can offer across the scale of different boutiques of development programs. So I just see this as a one-off, and I guess for me, I don't think we need it today, so I'd rather us talk about a whole program of what incentives could look like, or when you go to develop and build a piece of land out, instead of just this one-off on this, because I don't think it's something we need to worry about yet. But I'll leave it at that. That's my thoughts on it. So I probably would. I appreciate you supporting it or splitting them out, because I probably wouldn't be able to support this one. As I just think we don't need it quite now.
Excellent. I'll make sure we split that out when it comes to voting. I saw Mayor Clayton next, and then I've got Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Thiessen.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I think I'm good until we debate the items that have been split out. Thank you.
Excellent. Sounds good. So I see Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Thiessen. So Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Bressie, Deputy Mayor. I really like to see this one in, because it puts business in a position to find innovative ways to be able to prevent water going into the storm system. And I think having it there may be the impetus for people to be able to design. And I know of one building in town that currently has a roof design that captures all the water. And so I think that's very innovative, and I think we should do it. I don't think we should see it as a penalty to development, but as an incentive for people to find ways to reduce the amount of water going in the stormwater system. So I'm not in support of taking it out. I'd like to see it in the package. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, we'll definitely vote on it separately, and then we'll see where people go when we vote on it. Just be a little pedantic. I think the correct way to refer to me today would probably be Chair Bressie or Councillor Bressie would probably be even better. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Anyways, I do have a question. It is largely for the chair, but I'll just I have similar thoughts on this item 6 as Councillor O'Connor. I think it says that we're going to develop something. I think part of that is you implement the system, you see what other ideas might be out there. It could be something as simple as maybe they set up a bunch of rain barrels outside of their drain spouts, and they can show that they're lessening the impact of rainfall, like going into the storm coming off the roof. My question for you, Mr. Chair, is in regards to amendments. So I have a motion that I can add to this, but it can be part, like it's probably if it's most best under number 4, but it could also go in the whole motion as well. How would you like me to propose, or anyone to propose amendments rather than just specific items here?
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll keep on going around and see if people have any questions or requests to split, and then we can deal with that. I'll come to you before we get into proper debates, see if you need to split something out then.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Councillor Blackmore.
My question really is a point of order. So we've split out 6, we split out 7. So really, we at this point should be debating 1 through 5.
Good point.
Unless someone is going to split one of those other items out. So I'm willing to debate point 1 through 5. If you feel that we've reached that point, maybe if someone else has an item to split out, they could raise their hand or something and let you know to go to them next. Just a point of order of how to manage this.
Excellent. No, very much agreed. Thank you. I appreciate that point of order. So is there anybody else that has questions concerning 1 to 5 or request to split 1 to 5 out? Right, then maybe I'll recognize Councillor Thiessen. Why don't you move your amendment, and then I'll let you know if I think we should split out while we're doing it, or
All right. Thank you very much. I'm not sure where this is going to land with the rest of council here, but I would move an amendment to item number 4 for exclusions to add K through 8 schools. And so that would be that exclusion from utility charges include road right-of-ways, public utility lots, park green spaces and playgrounds, cemeteries, environmental reserves, and K through 8 schools. The reason why I'm adding that in is we did have a couple delegations come in at our committee meeting, both from the Catholic and the public school divisions. And they were talking about their concerns in regards to their budgeting and their costs, and I guess the nimbleness of the provincial government to be able to provide them appropriate funding with the increased costs. The reason I specify only K through 8 elementary schools is because based off of the design, even though largely it's held on municipal reserve lands, and the building footprint itself is what we're actually contemplating on the storm drainage system, is that there is a lot of green space and a lot of permeable land that would mitigate a lot of storm flow coming off of that, and it's pretty much mandated. K through 8 schools, they have large field spaces, lots of trees, playgrounds, other stuff there to accommodate kids running around and all that stuff, and I think the existence of those not only promotes our community in the neighborhoods that they exist in, but it also helps to mitigate the amount of storm runoff based off of just their whole building design. So I look forward to council entertaining this motion and this amendment and see where we land with debate. Thank you.
Excellent. So that amendment is certainly in order. So what we've got is a move to amend point 4 to add K to 8 schools. What we'll do is we're only going to ask questions or debate that amendment to point 4, and then we'll vote on that amendment. And if you don't like the way that vote goes, then you can definitely split off point 4 at that time if you don't like where we end up with this. But for now, we'll just we'll debate that amendment to point 4 to add K to 8 schools into exclusions. And first up, I've got Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. So the only issue that I really see with this, or one of the major issue, is are all schools within our boundaries clearly K to 8 and 9 to 12, or are there some that would overlap? Because if there's overlapping, well then we run into some new issues that we hadn't anticipated. Like I know that there's some schools, private schools, that might be K to 12. So when we specify half of the building or 3/4 of the building, what do we do? So that's one issue that I see that might come up with this amendment.
Thank you. Next, I have Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Councillor Bressie. I guess my question to you, Councillor Thiessen, is do you not include football fields and soccer fields and track fields a part of K to 8 structures? Like, they may have playgrounds, but high schools have, fields. So I'm not sure that you could sway me to agree with the K to 8 part.
Yeah, that's fair. May I respond?
I think what I'll do, Councillor Thiessen, is I think these are more debatey questions than questions, so I'll definitely make sure you get to close before we vote on it, if that's all right with you. Next, I'll go to Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, thank you, Chair Bressie. I really think this is part of number 7, which we've already split off, which includes schools. And so I'm not in favor of adding this amendment for that reason, that we're debating something that is part of another issue later on that we've split off. So,
and I guess just my comment on that is the school board, as we heard on Tuesday, does view this exclusion different than a grant, and this is more in line with the school board's request anyway. So take that or leave it if you want, but I definitely think it's in order to be debating this right now. Next up, I've got Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. I'm not going to support the amendment for a couple of reasons. The primary motivator for me to consider passing a stormwater utility is that it involves true cost accounting. Right now, everyone is paying for their stormwater utility through their taxes, and it's unclear to all of us what that amount really is. By developing a stormwater utility, we give people the option or the opportunity to actually see what this service costs them and indeed what it costs the city of Grande Prairie. So that's one reason for not supporting the motion. Another reason is the school sites, playgrounds, football fields, etc., are already not included in this bylaw because they're permeable surfaces, and we are looking at charging stormwater utility for the impermeable surfaces, which for schools would be their roofs and parking lots. And while I'm sympathetic that this is an additional cost that schools have not been paying to date, that doesn't seem to me a reason to disclude them from paying this in the future. True cost accounting should apply to everybody, including the provincial government and the provincial building and the hospital. It should include churches and nonprofits, and it should include schools. And I don't believe that the stormwater utility is going to be an onerous task for these organizations to meet. So I simply cannot support Councillor Thiessen's motion. And the final nail in the coffin for me is I'm not sure that his motion for schools really belongs in this particular item number anyway. So I will not support the motion, and I would ask you to not support the motion as well.
Excellent. Thank you. I've got Councillor O'Toole and then Councillor Palat.
Mine's going to be real short. Thank you, Gladys Blackmore, for Councillor, for saying all that stuff, because that was on my mind, and now I don't have to say it, so I'll move on. I'm not supporting this for those same reasons.
Excellent. Councillor Palat and then Councillor Bosch.
Thanks, Chair Bressy. I also can't support this, and I would see it as kind of number 7 as well. And I kind of repeat it. I think Councillor Blackmore said it really well. My biggest fear is if we start giving any concessions to one user group or one, whether it's schools and although I know when there's a great amount of empathy around our table to want to help the school systems, if we do that, then we might as well just open it up to all the user groups that we were trying to make this a user-pay system, because the churches will be next and then user groups will keep coming. So I think if we're going to separate out any groups, we're basically saying we're going to open up business so all will be separated out. And I just don't want to set that precedence when we're setting something new that is really about getting the true cost recovery on a utility. So I can't support the motion.
Excellent.
Or the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Councillor Bressy. Just to comment into what you had said earlier, when the schools were here for committee, we did talk about grants in lieu if approved, and that would go under number 7 in my opinion. But that can be projected over 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So I don't think that would just, it's a one or the other, because that comment was part of the discussions last week.
And I just say that if this motion fails, somebody's definitely welcome to make a motion to give more specific direction around grants too, if council wants to have administration do more work on those grants. I think what I'd say about this is we're talking about a utility here. We're talking about a very basic service that properties get to operate their buildings. It's essential that you have stormwater not entering your building envelope. And we don't give schools grants to pay for electricity. We don't give them grants to pay for water. So I don't know why we'd exclude them from paying their fair share of stormwater. I think that there might be a conversation worth having of, hey, do we want to support school boards more for some of the programs they're doing that align with us? And I'm very open for conversations about, are there better ways that we can support school boards in their work with students? But for me, it doesn't make sense to support them through subsidizing their stormwater. So I can't support this either. I'm not seeing anybody else in the queue, but I will go to Councillor Thiessen to close.
Well, thank you very much. Sounds pretty unanimous, but I'm still going to take a shot at it here. I'll just direct every member of council's attention to point number 2. So the annual utility cost here, it says, will be based on the building footprint for residential customers and an impervious parcel area for non-residential customers. So the reason why I point to that is because by and large, the uniqueness of a K-8 school largely encourages us to set aside enough municipal reserve so that there will be green space and landing for the water that's coming off, whether that's draining off the roof and into the sandbox. It's still not going into our storm system. There's lots of green space opportunities for that. And the reason I say K through 8 versus like 9 through 12, we don't have a lot of high schools in our town, so it was easy to take a drive-by this weekend and to see how much impervious space that we actually have around our high schools versus our K through 8 schools. And you'd be surprised to find out that probably 80% of a parcel of a high school is all about concrete. And when we're talking about those sports fields, we're also talking about AstroTurf, which really, in one case, at least at the CKC, doesn't necessarily aid and abet drainage away from the stormwater system and isn't really a permeable surface either. So those are considerations that I take into mind. The community benefit here is great, but I'm also trying to think of the extra administrative costs it's going to come to our Catholic and public school divisions to write the grants, at least in the Catholic, in the public school department. It's 19 schools to have those. Now, some are going to get some won't. I don't know. Our administration's usually really, really great about, adjudicating all grant proposals fairly. But it could come down to some schools have and some schools have not. And sometimes our budget is only so big to accommodate that. So I thought, as I've heard some of the other arguments, I don't want this to touch on churches. There are some not-for-profits that don't pay property tax that this could impact, and I think they are the appropriate people to write those grants and to try to get those offsets through this. But the reason I'm advocating for K through 8 is multi-level, is because one, they already provide a vast amount of green space compared to their building footprint. Number two, there's quite a bit of them, so the administrative burden on our school division would be increased, unless you're a cut and paste king or queen. And three, I think it just makes sense. We want to encourage the development of schools, and we want the funds that our school divisions have to go to giving our students the proper supports that they have in the classroom, rather than paying for the stuff that's happening outside of the classroom. Already we take into account all the green space that's going to surround it, and I think that in itself creates enough permeable space that it's a low impact on what a school might contribute to our stormwater utility system. So for all those reasons, I encourage at least one of you to change your mind. I'm still going to vote in favor of my motion, so thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And with that, I will call the votes question. Just a reminder, this is on the amendment to number 4. And that motion is defeated. I'll just look to you, Councillor Thiessen. Do you wish to split this off from the rest, or are you okay still voting for it with the other?
Yeah, I'm still okay to vote with it. I'll take my losses as they come.
Great. Then I'll just look at our queue. If anybody has further debate they want to have on items 1 to 5, then now's the time to do that. So, Councillor Blackmore.
I have no debate, but I do want to speak in support of this motion, as I mentioned before. For me, this is purely a case of true cost accounting, knowing what we pay for when we pay for taxes and knowing what we pay for when we pay a utility bill, to me, demarks a very clear picture of what the city is providing for us. So I ask that you support the motion 1 through 5. That's it.
Excellent, thank you. And I'm not seeing anybody else. Oh, Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Chair Bresci. I just wanted to make 2 comments. First of all, my apologies, but I voted incorrectly on the last one. I didn't do that just to help Councillor Thiessen show some love. I actually I wanted to vote in opposition to that, so my apologies on that. And secondly, I'd like to make an amendment
Sorry.
to all 5 of them, and
Sorry, Councillor Plott, I'm happy to recognize you to move an amendment, but maybe what I'll do is I'll call a revote on the last one first. Is that, yeah, let's do a revote on that so that our record properly reflects. No, that's okay, it happens. All right, so I'll call again to question the vote on that amendment to number 4. All right, and that motion is still defeated. All right, and sorry, Councillor Palat, you've got an amendment you'd like to move as well?
I just want to ask administration, I guess when I look at this, I'm wondering there's no date attached. We should be this will be implemented on February 1st, 2024 or March 1st, 2024, something. Just so that there's a timestamp date that we're actually, as we approve this tonight, if we do approve this in principle, it does allow the school boards, the churches, the user groups a date where they realize this is when this will be implemented. So it does give them some time to get their head around this. So I'll ask administration if there's a specific spot or Chair Bresci if it's in fact just saying I think that out of these 5 we should have a date for them.
So maybe first of all, I'll turn to administration. What is the timeline that you anticipate on this if these recommendations are all passed today?
Through the chair, the target date is for a January 1st, 2024 implementation. However, the one piece that will influence the implementation date significantly is the billing provider. As was mentioned at committee, there are 2 billing providers being contemplated. One is through Aquatera and one is the city itself. Both organizations are implementing new billing software for their what they use either for the city for the assessment and taxation, and for Aquatera, their entire billing software is being revamped and under new ones being put into place. Both timelines they don't have exact timelines to give us at this point. And so we don't want to commit fully to that January 1st, 2024, just because the billing could potentially change. We will, with the approval of these principles that Council is going through tonight, that'll give administration much more clarity moving forward to build the system and to sit down with the 2 different billing options and come up with exact costs. There was just a challenge without having some of these things decided. It could the number of properties that would be included could vary significantly, which changes the billing cost and some of the components of the billing software. And so once we have this information and Council's decided on these principles, we'll be able to come back with a much more detailed costing on the different billing options, as well as greater details in terms of when the timeline and implementation and our anticipated date for coming back with that information is May, June of this year.
Excellent. So, Councillor Plot, with that information in hand, are you planning to make an amendment?
I think for now, Chair Bresci, I'll leave it, and I can come back to that as a subsequent motion after these 5. I think I have another thing I'd probably like to put forward, so I can just add it then.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll turn it to Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I think this could easily be solved by using the word tentative start date, and I would add that Council approve the following recommendations in implementing a stormwater utility structured on an impervious service area fee model tentatively for January 1st, 2020.
So you're making the motion to amend that?
Yes.
I did have a little whisper from our city manager about better wording if you're open to it, Councillor O'Connor, is no sooner than rather than tentatively.
Okay. No sooner than, I'd accept that.
Excellent. So we've got a motion to amend our package that we say no, this happens no sooner than January 1st, 2024 was the motion. Excellent. Any debate on this amendment? Okay, I'll call it to question. And that motion carries. Is there anybody else that's got questions or debate for items 1.5 in our package? Or sorry, 125 in our package? I'm not, oh, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bresci. I just wanted to talk about the process that just happened there. In my opinion, new business should have happened at the end of that, and my intent was to have a different motion. We can talk about this following, but in my opinion, that this implementation needs to have 12 months notice for those who may be impacted by their billing. It's already been amended now, and so I'll deal with it after, but any other motion coming forward should happen after item 7. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you. I appreciate the feedback. And if we want, the council can always vote to reconsider that too if we need to too. So definitely I don't want that to limit us if we've got a different direction of where we think we should go. All right, so I will then, I'm not seeing anybody else in the queue, so I will then call the question on items 1 to 5. Excellent, and that motion carries. So then I will bring us to item 6, which regards the directing administration to develop a credit system to incentivize measures that are taken beyond development permit value. Is there anybody that's got any questions or debate on this item 6? Councillor Bosch.
Thank you,
Mayor Clayton.
Councillor Bressie. I guess my question is to administration. To incentivize measures, particularly for the school. I do have concerns that the public school board in particular for when they said their numbers to us, when potentially $185,000 out of a $1.2 million budget, that could impact them, up to 15%. So that is significant. What have other cities done with their school boards to incentivize some sort of credit system or granting system?
Sorry, Councillor Bosch, we're talking about item 6 right now.
Number 6.
Yeah, so number 6, so a credit system to be developed to incentivize measures taken beyond development permit requirements. So that's we heard about the grit separators and bioswales and things like that, which is different from talking about schools.
Okay. Well, I'll let my question stand for number 7, but I guess this would go into question 6 for upcoming bills.
Okay. So, sorry. So you do have a question about number 6?
Same question.
Okay. Mr. Tarrant?
Through the chair, so would the question then for number 6 be other communities and their experiences with a credit system? So most, if not all, municipalities that have gone through a stormwater utility that is based on the impervious service area have a credit system associated with the utility, and that again provides those for those that go over and above what the current standards are, that they get an extra credit. And typically, most of the credit systems are upwards to 30% off their stormwater charge if they meet certain criterias, and there's typically different categories, whether you're improving stormwater quality or you're improving the runoff coefficient and reducing the runoff volumes from a property. Those are sort of the two main areas that are included within a credit system. So I would say most, if not all, of those that are on an impervious system do have a credit system.
Thank you. My question still does stand, so I'm not sure why I even took that back, because the point of this is a credit system, even on, developing new kind of systems within what is current. So you're saying that outside of new builds, they have put in some sort of system to gain credits, correct? Have they put in like Councillor Thiessen said, like water barrels or, digging trenches or, drawing the water away from the impervious structure? Yes? They have?
I mean, I don't think that there are some developments that have gone above and beyond the requirements and implemented things like a green roof, for example, that significantly reduces stormwater. It's more of a challenge to retrofit, I think, an existing development, and so I suspect the credit system would largely apply to new development. depending on, again, the cost benefit of trying to retrofit an existing development that way.
Okay, that was additionally my question. Has other communities done anything to retrofit the schools that are now paying a stormwater fee? So if there hasn't, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. Just curious, timeline on what the system would look like. So if this item gets passed today, administration comes back with a credit system. What time frame are you thinking before you come back? And will council have another opportunity for input on the credit system?
Mr. Trott.
Through the chair, the intent with all these items is that we are going to be putting together bylaws and policies that will come forward in the May to June timeframe, and so at that time you'll see the specifics of the stormwater rates and the charges, and have those all detailed, have all the credit system established, so you could see exactly what the credit system would look like, as well as you could have a sense of what type of properties would be eligible for those type of credits. Also at that time, if council does proceed with the grant proposal, we would have that discussion, and you would have the full grant proposal ready for you to decide on, which, and then the relevant impacts to the finances of the utility. So we're looking, to answer your question, yeah, that May, June is when we expect to have all the final pieces ready.
Excellent. Thank you. I have Councillor Blackmore next.
I think that my question is to council. The motion's on the floor, and if someone wants to amend it or change it, we need to know why. Otherwise, we're not debating anything substantive at this point.
Yeah. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you. I don't disagree with Councillor Blackmore, so I'm going to withdraw my question because, again, it was more around debate. I'm convinced that these should pass.
Excellent. Mayor Clayton.
No, apologies. Forgot to lower my hand.
Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else in the queue, so I will call voting on number 6 to question. That motion carries, which brings us to number 7. And I see Councillor Blackmore.
I'm going to ask council to oppose number 7 and remove it from the lineup. And my reason for this is, as I've already stated today a few times, I feel the stormwater utility is an opportunity for true cost accounting and should apply evenly across the board to all businesses, residents alike in the city. And so I feel that a grant system is unnecessary and not an avenue that I wish to explore. So I would ask council to defeat number 7.
And Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. She just got her hand in before I did. I was going to say the exact same thing as Councillor Blackmore. I 100% agree with her. I think if we go down this step of starting to do one-offs, we're going to create an administrative nightmare for our city, and we're going to miss the goal of what this whole purpose of the intent of this was, a user-pay system on the storm utility. So I'm hoping we defeat this as a council as well.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bressie. So this is one that I would actually still like to see passed. I think this particular item needs more debate and more conversation. And once we've broken that down, then in committee and then back to council, we can determine whether we want to veto this or not. But I do think that we need more robust discussion around it because I don't feel we've had that yet. And this is something that I was looking forward to having more discussion around.
Thank you. I'll insert myself and then I'll go to Councillor Bosch. I know for me, I share the sentiment that's been shared. At the same time, I know that some of these organizations really are dealing with constrained budgets. And so for me, I can't support it as it is right now, although I think there might be merit to council talking about a 2-year program or a 3-year program to phase them in so they can adjust them in their budget over time. But in the long term, personally, I think every property should be paying the full fair cost of its storm system. I'll go to Councillor Bosch and then Mayor Clayton.
Thank you, Councillor Bressie. I'm wondering if we could amend it to that a credit system be analyzed to incentivize measures instead of developed.
So you're definitely welcome to make that motion if you want, but I'll look to Mr. Trant to confirm this. I think that my understanding is that's kind of what this motion does, is it's not saying, hey, we're going to do a grant system. It's saying, hey, administration, we think we've got enough. There's enough merit in a grant system for council to debate this further. So go and analyze and develop what you think that would look like so we can debate it.
This tells me develop means that it's coming to be. So if you say otherwise, I'll accept that. But I want to know for sure that it's something that we may look into and decide from there, similar to Councillor Berg's comment. But to me, it reads as it's being developed as a program.
Yeah. So, Mr. Trant, what happens if this motion carries right now?
Through the chair, the intent is to authorize his administration to go ahead and develop all the different parameters within a program. So it'll include items such as the inclusion of the list of all the properties that are currently included as tax exempt, and so there could be a conversation around which ones, if any, should be continued to be tax exempt. We'll also include the conversation around length of time. Is this a full exemption for 10 years, 5 years? Is there a phase-in period in which the grant program ends? Also will be whether it's going to be a full exemption or whether there's partial exemptions, and whether there's full exemptions for certain categories or partial for others. So those are all the items that would be explored and analyzed. And in terms of developed, the intent was that you would have a proposal to see, this is what our recommendation for, we do want to go ahead, this is how it would look, and this is how it would be administered. But council would ultimately have decide how the different components within that exemption program would look like.
It's a proposal you'd be bringing to council, not just going and doing.
Okay, perfect. I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Clayton and then Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I encourage council to vote against this motion. I think that it be said that businesses too are struggling with increased costs of the utilities. People are planning 12 months in advance in regards to what expansion looks like, investment in our region, and to single out certain sectors of our community doesn't seem not only not fair, it doesn't seem necessary. I think that with this program coming back to council in late spring, there will be time for discussions and consideration, and my intent would be that our program wouldn't start from 12 months till we've identified the criteria, such in point 6. So giving the organizations that have been identified in point 7, 12 months notice for budgeting, for planning, is more than enough time. We all know that our utility bills and our grocery bills and our gas pump bills went up with days notice. And somehow we've all accommodated that, unfortunately. But I think that it's with a 12-month notice that it's more than realistic that these organizations can tweak. We are going to hear in public that this is going to impede the services they offer, and I think that that's simply unfortunate messaging. The reality is that if there's significant notice, there can be ways to accommodate this increase. And so therefore, I don't think these sectors need to be singled out as ones that need a reprieve from this. I think that the system is there, as mentioned, because it's true cost accounting, and I encourage council to vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Plott, your hand went down. Are you good, or do you want to speak?
No, I wouldn't mind just jumping in, Councillor Bressie. Just echoing some of Mayor Clayton's comments, I don't know what other industry gives a year's notice to people to say, hey, we're going to have a rate change. And again, I know how much we all have empathy to the user groups this is going to affect. We sometimes forget the city, this is on us then. And we talk constantly about what's the best thing for our community. If we start singling out user groups or whether it's schools, churches, anybody, this is just going to continue on. And so I encourage you to defeat this and keep in mind, if you're just going to have this come as a report and think administration put a bunch of effort in just so a year from now go, you know, I'm probably not going to support this anyways, just don't support this now. It sends a really mixed message to our community to say, we're going to look into this. And then in a year we go, 6 months, we go, no, we're good. I think if we're all heading towards this is a cost recovery system, and that's why we're doing it, that we need to stick to that. It's a cost recovery system. So I really do urge everybody to defeat this. And let's not put the onus on administration to bring us back a report that we're probably just going to defeat in 6 months anyways.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bressie. Again, I'm still in favor of this. I guess one of the things that I do consider is with many of these schoolyards, and we brushed on it in our committee, but I'll restate it now, is many of these schoolyards do provide football fields in vast areas that are a net benefit to our stormwater system. And so when I look at that, like a school that is benefiting the system to the positive, I do think that there should be some measure of credit there. Now, what that credit is, I don't know. But again, we haven't had that discussion. But for institutions like that are providing a benefit beyond what they're using, I think there should be some credit for that. So that's why I would like to have more conversation around it.
Thank you. This is the end of the queue. I'm not seeing anybody else lunging for their buttons, so I will call this vote on item number 7 to question. And that motion does not carry. That was all the recommendations there, but I just want to give a chance if Mayor Clayton or anybody else has further business they'd like to do on this. I want to give an opportunity for that. Mayor Clayton.
Sure, just a question, Councillor Chair Bressie, a question for administration, and I think I heard it correctly, but I wanted to be clear. When this comes back in late spring, there will be an opportunity for council at that time to have input, because as noted, my preference once everything comes back for final discussion that it be implemented 12 months following that. So I just want to make sure that I heard correctly, it's coming back in late spring, and we'll have an opportunity for input at that time.
See Mr. Tarrant nodding his head yes to that. Councillor Plott?
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I'd like to make an additional motion, and I brought it up at committee last week. My motion will be that administration develop a reporting process to show this is a true in and out system and how that's going to look moving forward, how reserves are going to be handled, if there is reserves, how the funding is going to be handled, and how we show the community this wasn't just a shell game. This was about true cost recovery around storm utilities. So I'm kind of making the motion on the fly here a little bit. The wording, again, is more of the gist. I'm working for friendly amendments that administration supply us with a financial accountability structure that will be implemented, that we can show the community this is a true cost recovery system.
So, Councillor Plott, something that I will highlight is that in item number 1, committee made an amendment that not only is it revenue neutral, but that it's also clearly reported annually upon implementation. So I think what you're saying would be covered in that, and we definitely would have the ability when this comes to us next to ask more questions about what would be included in the report if we want. With that in mind of the amendment the committee made, are you okay just taking that as a words of administration, what you want in that annual report?
I guess it is there, and I do have trust in administration with that. I'm not sure I think annually is enough. We do quarterly summaries on all of our other stuff. We have quarterly updates on all of our surplus gains, on just to give you a net variance. And so I'm a little bit concerned annually. This is a brand new project, but if administration is confident that that is going to be enough, I'm okay with that. I am concerned about us making sure we're showing this to the community. So if our city manager is comfortable that this is going to be captured, then I'm okay with not making that motion.
I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Nicolay.
Thank you, Chairman Bressi. And yes, I can confirm for you that the minimum statutory requirement, if this were approved, would be an annual reporting, such as our annual financial statements. But it is our practice, and at the direction of council, that can be increased at any time. Our current practice is to report quarterly, so this would be reported quarterly and more frequently if council so desired at any time in the future.
Okay, appreciate that. I'll withdraw the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further business on the stormwater utility model? Well, Mr. Trant, Mr. Mans, I know this has been a lot of work and there's more to come, so we thank you for the work you're putting into this. With that, I'll turn it over to Councillor Bosch to see if there's any reporting from her committee she'd like to share.
Thank you, Councillor Bressi. Well, a big part of our committee meeting was just talked about, so that's certainly the one that took the most time and energy. I'd like to talk about the contract for the O'Brien Bioengineering project was awarded to Associated Environmental and is expected to get underway this summer. We talked about upcoming construction for 2023, facilities, finalizing procurement for solar project at Design Works Center. We talked about the new sandbox program, which was implemented a couple weeks ago. And I don't know how many people are using it, but I hope people are using it extensively. And we talked about there's 33 neighborhood rinks supplied this year, so that's pre-pandemic numbers. So happy to see that the rinks are all going and the kids are getting out there and having some fun. Again, with the Crokinole and the skating oval now open at the Montrose, that's great to see too. Lots of fun seeing that at the Grand North Festival last weekend. So with that, that is all the extras outside of the stormwater model.
Thank you for the report. I'll turn it over to Councillor Palat for the InvestGP committee.
Thanks, Chair Bressi. I just make a motion that council adopt the minutes from the InvestGP committee held January 17th, 2023 as presented.
Councillor O'Toole's in favor. That motion carries, and I'll ask for the meeting highlights.
Thanks, Chair Bressi. We had some updates from our acting CAO, Mr. Miller, letting us know again how successful our rural residential renewal program is going. We had 146 applications in. We have 66 businesses now that we've sent letters of endorsement. So kudos to our economic development team. I'm down here in Whistler with our ECDEV team, and they're giving out these great cookies down here, but I think they're also locally getting a lot of traction on that, and actually hearing down here some of the companies talking about how great that program is being subscribed. It helps a lot of small businesses. We also closed off our year with a bang. We had 9 applications for our development incentive grants right at the end of the year, so that was another nice close off. And we had some items of business. We approved a development permit for a use of a project on 102nd Street, and we also approved a new telecom tower. And that's my report.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the Public and Protective Services Committee, and I've asked Councillor O'Connor to handle this one for me.
Okay, sorry about that. Would like to approve the minutes and from the Protective Services January 17th meeting, and I'd like to have that.
Excellent, thank you. I'll call that to question. Councillor O'Connor, or sorry, O'Toole in favor. That motion carries, and business arising.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to see that council approve, number 1, the amalgamation of the price or optimization of senior, student, and youth fees. Number 2, approve the elimination of 6-month and annual prepaid membership. Number 3, approve the new membership type option 1. And 4, direct administration to prepare amendments to the fees, rates, and charges bylaw to reflect these charges. And in speaking to this, I think our staff have done an excellent job of reviewing the whole process, and they deserve a pat on the back. They've done an excellent job. So please, I'd like you to accept this motion for approval, please.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody in the queue, but I personally had a question about it for administration. And I'm just wondering, as I was reading it closer, I noticed that in the new membership type that gives access to additional city facilities, there was no mention of the Activity Reception Center in Smith. So I'm wondering if it was considered for inclusion, and if so, why it wasn't included schedulally.
Thank you, Chair Pressy. Yes, there was lots of discussion about including that facility. Given the recent motion resulting from budget deliberations with additional funding to allow for some free community drop-in, we opted not to include it at this time and would consider that as a future development, perhaps as we look to expand the program and including transit as another amenity that could be offered.
Okay, thank you. You have 4 motions before, or 4 items before us up for vote. I'm not seeing anybody else in the queue, so I will call them to question. That motion carries. And bicycle safety initiatives, Mr. O'Connor.
Help if you can get your button to work. Anyway, I'd like to move that council approve the use of additional trail safety signage on a small scale at Crystal Lake and Muskogee Park. And speaking to this, as I was traveling the other day, I was very appreciative that Councillor Berg was able to articulate the safety concern that residents have passed on to us. And I think this is a very strong step going forward to make sure that we're having our trails safe and that we don't have injuries happen. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
My concern with this initiative is that it doesn't go far enough to protect people or to address safety. As someone who used to design and make signs, I know very well that people don't read signs. They're simply so much noise on the landscape. I've noticed in other communities that the most effective way to manage traffic on bicycle lanes and pedestrian lanes is actually to mark the streets with striping exactly as if they were a road. I'm not asking for the expensive, I think the word is poly something, Brian, plastic stripe. I'm not asking for the expensive plastic stripe, but I feel that painting directly on the trail would be more effective as we are trying to address safety. I don't feel that it's going to be a significantly more costly than signage, but I think it will be significantly more effective. I'm not going to support this motion in the hopes that we can move to a different medium that I feel is more safe.
Thank you. Councillor Berg, then Councillor Bosch.
Thanks, Chair Bressy. So this is something that I do support. I don't disagree that people don't read signs, but some people do read signs. And I think that this is an excellent educational opportunity. And I think it's something that we can roll out for spring right away, and or especially around the Crystal Lake Bike Park. Again, maybe all the kids won't read it, but some will. But it also just kind of serves notice to everybody that bike safety is an issue. And one of the main reasons that this was actually rolled out is because of e-bikes and new technology that have people going at much higher rates of speed. I've heard people quite concerned around the Muskogee Park area. You've got your dog on a leash. The leash might be 5 feet, and again, your dog may not stay in its own lane. And so I think we need to promote safety in a number of ways. I think this is a very critical and crucial first step.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Councillor Bressy. I'm in favor of this motion. If we want to add something to put on the ground, I'm okay with that too. My concern with that only as being the option is, being we live in a winter city, how many times will all of those safety signs be covered in snow. We see that with parking all over the city, that they may have, the handicap painting on the ground, but they've had to additionally add something that is vertical. So if you want to add more to it, fine, I'm good with that. But safety signage is fine with me.
Councillor O'Toole and then Councillor Palat.
Yeah, I'm fully supportive of the signs, and I also would like to see us go further in the future. This is going to be a budget impact item, and I think maybe somebody at committee could bring that up in the future meeting to bring it to budget in the end. Maybe we don't have to do all of them at one, or the whole area of the city, but maybe we can do real hot spots this year, maybe, if that would work out. But that's my opinion, and I think it works.
Thank you. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I'm on this theme of agreeing with Councillor Blackmore a lot today, but I do agree with her. I think the line painted would probably be as effective or more effective than signage. So I'm going to make an amendment to the motion to have council approve the use of additional trail safety signage as well as painting a center line painted on the paths in Crystal Lake and Muskogee Park. I think this would be a good trial system to try these two areas, and if we see that's going to be a benefit, that'd be great. I know from someone that uses the trail system a lot, you might have seen a sign, but people just get forgetful when they're ripping around corners sometimes. And I know my family's almost been wiped out, and the person apologizes even though they're on the wrong side of the lane. That little line there would have made a big difference. So I think from the safety of people trying to utilize that trail system as a family biking, that line down the middle will probably do more than the signage. So that's my friendly amendment for this one.
Okay, well, and I think it's not a friendly amendment. I think that's a real amendment. So
okay,
so definitely happy to entertain it, though, and I will turn it over to Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bressie. I think that would have a fairly significant financial impact, painting the trail system. And if I could ask our operations manager, how many miles of trail would we be looking at, and if you could even ballpark?
Mr. Glavin?
Cost would be.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. I don't have that off the top of my head as far as how many kilometers of trail for the entire network. At one point, more than a decade ago, the city used to paint the lines in the Muskogee Park corridor. As far as doing a portion like that, that would be relatively easy to operationalize. But I'd have to come back with more information on the resources necessary to do the entirety of the system. But it wouldn't be insurmountable. I just don't have a cost off the top of my head.
Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, I might be inclined to support this motion, but somebody changed their vote earlier in the day here, so that's not the reason why. I do think there is a significant budgetary cost that's associated with this, and if we're in the spirit of keeping people safe and sparing no expense, then maybe we should make amendments that we bubble wrap everybody that goes up and down the trails. We have bell systems that are in our bylaws for bike riders. Considerate bike riders ding their bell as they go around the corner on something that they can't see. Most of us old timers like myself, we were already trained through programs such as Safety City and within our own schools that when you're traveling on a path through the woods, you stick to the right just like you would on any road. That's basic safety, especially when kids are going through that. I'm sure we could ask what our bike safety programs are like and if they offer that to kids who are looking to take us up on that service. I just think this is a very significant cost just to wantonly vote on it today and task our administration. Councillor Berg was very astute. That was my question. How many miles, how many kilometers of road are we actually talking about just in Muskogee and otherwise? I think it would be foolish for us to pass a motion like this right now without knowing all the direct costs and impacts of what it's going to be. And if we really want to paint all the lines to our paths, which isn't necessarily a bad idea, it could be an expensive idea, we should have those proper costs and we should plan for it rather than just throw it out there here at a council meeting as an amendment. So I will not support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
I would perhaps suggest that Councillor Plott might want to amend his motion slightly so that instead of declaring lines painted, we ask for a report back on the painting of lines.
Councillor Plott, I'll turn it over to you, see if you want to respond to that.
No, I'm listening to my colleagues here, and again, on the theme of Councillor Blackmore, I do agree it might be better to just withdraw a motion and make a subsequent motion afterwards to bring administration to bring back a report of what it would cost to do the trail system in just Muskogee and Crystal Lake, as the report indicates. So I'm fine with withdrawing my amendments, and I'll make a subsequent motion.
Excellent.
Or somebody in chamber, that's fine as well.
Excellent. And I'll allow that amendment to be withdrawn unless somebody's scrambling to their microphone saying, no, please, I want to vote on this. I'm not seeing anybody saying that. So we'll withdraw that amendment, and we'll go back to, does anybody else have anything they wish to discuss or debate about the original motion about trail safety signage? Okay. Then I will call that original motion's question. And that motion carries. And Councillor Plott, would you like to make a follow-up motion?
Yes, please, Chair Bressie. I just make a motion that we ask administration to come back with a report and costing on what it would be to add a center line painted for the Muskogee trail system as well as the Crystal Lake Park trail system.
So that's certainly in order. Is there any conversation or debate on this report? Okay, then I will call that to question. And that motion carries. Is there any further business on this bicycle safety agenda item? Not seen any. So, Councillor O'Connor, if you could share meeting highlights.
Apologize ahead of time. There was a lot of stuff on this meeting. So, community and social development, administration and participated in Thriving in the City event at Northwest Polytech to promote Youth Advisory Council. There were 12 applications for the Explore GP processed for new immigrant students, and the Passionate Heart nominations are open until January 14th, and the event will be held on February 14th at Bonance Energy Center. Housing and homelessness, winter emergency response started on January 5th. This provides a warm, safe place for individuals during the extreme winter weather conditions while addressing capacity overages at Wapiti House. And it's located at the South Bear Creek Pavilion until March 31st. Enforcement Services Administration has worked closely with transportation to ensure efficient snow clearing operations through education, warnings, and violations. Citizens appear to be in support of the city's snow clearing operations overall. There have been a high number of complaints relating to sidewalk snow clearing, and this is being addressed through education, warnings, and enforcement action. So my wife is watching you. GPREP, a stakeholder meeting, was held later this week to network with first responders. Fire department, there have been long delays waiting for ambulances recently. More information will be provided at an upcoming meeting. Community Knowledge Campus, just over 3,000 members and guests enjoyed the Eastlink Center 10th anniversary wrap-up party on December 11th. It was tremendous watching the mayor build the most awesome set of cupcakes. How could she just do it off the cuff? I don't know. Anyway, did an amazing job. And Sports and Development and Wellness and Culture, New Year's Eve was a large success with estimated 7,000 people went through the pavilion, and with more in attendance for the firework presented by Explore. And Ernie Bradbourne Pavilion hours extended between December 28th and January 6th. And transit, good to know, the heater is now operational on the Eastlink bus shelter, and many charter requests have been received over the past few weeks. So that's my report. Thank you so much. You have a busy committee.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the comprehensive report, although I think you might have missed the word allegedly in your comments about cupcakes. I'll move on to item 8.1. We've got correspondence. We've got a letter talking about flight schedules to Grande Prairie, and I'll entertain any business or comments or questions council might have. But as we dive into it, I do just want to assure Mr. Fraser and any members of the public watching that this is something that council does talk about, that we do engage with the Airport Commission, with industry about, and definitely is a concern in the community that is heard. I'll turn it over to Mayor Clayton first, and then Councillor Blackmore.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I just wanted to identify that this letter is very timely, as Council is working closely with Grande Prairie Airport Commission on advocacy in regards to missing and potential expanded flights to the region. I also know that industry is working with the GP Airport Commission and Council to look at where the opportunities are for expansion. So the message is heard from Mr. Fraser, and we are hearing it on a regular basis from industry. And I just want to, as mentioned, those who may be watching to know that this is a priority that's been identified by Council, and we currently are working on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
I would move that we accept the letter for information.
Not seeing anybody else in the queue. Is there any other conversation or debate on this? I will call it to question. That motion carries, which brings us to delegation business. Councillor Bosch.
Okay, now I can ask these questions. Thank you, Councillor Bressie. Can we find out how many residents subscribe to this program, and the overall opinions or complaints of the neighbors nearby? And the third part of that, she said she's got her pens about 30 feet away. Is that a common amount of distance that most people have that opportunity to have 30 feet of distance between their pens and their homes?
So there might be some answers we have to ask administration to go and come back with to a further meeting, but I will look, is there any member of administration who's able to take a stab at any of that, Ms. Casually?
Thank you, Chair Pressy. So to answer Councillor Bosch's question, there are currently 16 active livestock exemptions for urban hens within the city, and there are 2 applications that are in the queue being processed at the current time. I don't have at my fingertips any information related to complaints for you, but we can certainly bring that information back. There are set requirements for hen coops and runs within the city as part of the guidelines for having urban hens. So depending on for an approved site, they have to be, there's a certain setback from the property line, from a dwelling, from side and rear property lines, and from any other buildings on the site. So the minimum requirement is 3 meters from a dwelling. So in this case, this resident would exceed that.
I wondered. Yeah, 30 feet seems like a lot. For me, I would like to know about opinions or complaints or issues for these 16 active residents, only because if we're going to add more, potentially, you could potentially add insult to injury if it is an issue, in fact, for any neighbors.
So I'm just curious here, you're asking for something. Are you hoping to make a motion to give direction that we come back with information, or are you okay just leaving it where it is for now?
I thought Ms. Casually said they were going to come back with information anyway.
Well, I'd say if that's something that council expects, is it would be appropriate to make a motion to refer this to the appropriate standing committee, just to make sure it gets on an outstanding items list and we make sure it gets hit.
Perfect. Yes, I move that we have administration bring back a report to the appropriate standing committee.
I'll go next in the queue is Councillor Blackmore.
I'm going to ask Council to support this motion. I live very close to 4 urban hens, and I have to say I have never heard them, and they have never interfered with my life at all, unlike the dogs that live next door to them. So I think it's a very reasonable request, and I'd be happy to actually just roar straight ahead today, but I know that administration doesn't really like it when we just roar into things. So I will support the motion to refer this to administration.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. So my question for administration, how is the number determined when we initially put this in bylaw at 4? Was it an arbitrary number? Is it based on other communities? Just curious how we come up with the number 4 versus 6 as requested.
Yeah, I'd say that maybe could we save questions like that in debate maybe for committee as the advice I'm getting? I think right now we should be debating referring this committee, and do we want to do more work on this?
Sounds fair. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Next, I'll recognize Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. I would support this. She, in her report and her association, had mentioned that there have been no complaints. And so I think it's really important that if you're going from 4 to 6 and it fits in, I would be supporting this motion. I don't think we need to send back and give work to administration. I think let's be forward thinking and let's support this motion.
So, sorry, Councillor O'Connor, just to be clear, the motion before us is to send this back to administration to do.
Yeah, I won't support that then.
Okay. Mayor Clayton and then Councillor Bosch.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I just want to point out that the bylaw has been set by council. We won't be amending a bylaw right now. The best process is for this to come back to committee for discussion, so I encourage council to support this motion.
Councillor Bosch, just look around. I'll let you close for sure on this. I just want to look around and make sure nobody else wants to speak before I let you close. All right, go for it, Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Councillor Bressie. This request is valuable, and anything that helps people do things on their own, whether it's a garden or eggs from chickens or what have you, I support. However, I just want to have our due diligence that we have looked at all aspects. If in fact they have not received complaints, I'm not sure they would get the complaints necessarily as a little group, but if they do, I could be wrong on that, but nonetheless, we'll look at it and look into the bylaw. So I hope you'll support this motion, and we can just quickly move ahead with this in the future.
Thank you. I will call this motion's question. Thank you. That motion carries. And with that, we'll move on to unfinished business. We do have a rezoning before us. Rezonings do require us to hold a public hearing. However, we already had a public hearing for this some time ago, and council passed first 2 readings of the bylaw. So we don't have to redo that today. We can finish with 3rd reading today if council wishes. Since this is a little bit old, before I take a motion, maybe I'll ask if anybody has any questions for administration they want to ask before we get to business arising. So, Councillor Bosch, do you have a question, or were you just going to... Oh, sorry, I didn't clear you last time. A question I've got for administration. Oh, sorry, I'll let you hop in first, Councillor Blackmore.
I would like to hear more about the project itself, and so I would like to hear a report from administration before we move to a motion. I'm not sure if that's where you're headed or not, Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, and I was advised by the city manager that there wasn't a report prepared since we've done this in the past, but definitely administration's happy to take any questions we've got. So maybe I will turn over. I see Mr. Glavin maybe leaning forward the most. Is there any context you're able to provide to council as we head into discussing this?
Thank you, Chair Bressie. ultimately, what we have here is what's in the package with the rezoning from a medium density residential to general commercial. I do have Mr. Babalola, who is a report writer online. He's on Zoom. If you have any detailed questions, he can certainly provide some additional context to the application.
Then, Mr. Glavin, if I could, I would ask why is there such a delay between the first 2 readings and third reading of these items, as I was not, I don't think, here or on council at that time?
So I do think, I just want to clarify with our clerk, I do believe this was a public hearing this council held. And are you able to confirm, people can't vote on it if they weren't part of that public hearing. Are you able to confirm who was here for that public hearing, if everybody's eligible to vote?
I was out of town in March of last year.
Okay, so maybe we're going to have a little bit of discussion, but I'll ask administration to chase that down while we're having further discussion on this so we can confirm that everybody who votes on this can vote on this. Mr. Glavin.
Thank you, Chair Bressy. I can answer the question, though, on why it was delayed. It was delayed at the request of the applicant. They were looking to make a land sale, I believe.
I'm not seeing anybody else in the queue, but a question I had, Mr. Glavin, is if this passes, in the outline plan, we're amending how many residential units are expected in there. This might be for Mr. Babalola. I'll let you hand it off if you want, but how many residential units would be lost in the outline plan if this passes?
Thank you, Chair Bressy. So with this, if this passes, there would be approximately 33 units that would be removed. That's based on 80 units per hectare, so it could be above or below that, depending on what's developed.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on this rezoning? Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I'm just kind of curious as to what the development would actually be or might look like. I just see that there's a stormwater pond in behind it, if I'm looking at the correct parcel highlighted. And so I'm just kind of curious. To me, that would be prime land for families. And I feel we're taking potentially away from that prime residential spot to, put the back of a business potentially, again, depending on the layout. So just kind of curious as to what may actually go there. I know it's wide open, but yeah, I just like to know a little bit more information similar to what Councillor Blackmore was requesting.
Mr. Glavin.
Thank you, Chair Bressy. So, within the general commercial district, there's a range of permitted and discretionary uses, but you could see doctors' offices, for example, would be able to develop on that site. Retail would be another acceptable use, so it would be in that vein.
Thank you. I see Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bressy. I apologize. I misheard your intent here. Has anybody made the motion for third reading yet?
No, nobody has, but I'm not seeing anybody in the queue, so if you'd like to make that now, please go
Perfect.
ahead.
I never get to do this, so this is kind of fun. So I would move the council give third reading to bylaw C-1260-152, being an amendment to the land use bylaw.
Thank you. That motion is definitely in order, and I have been advised by Legislative Services that every member of council was here for the public meeting or for the public hearing, so everybody is eligible to vote on this.
Other than, can I suggest that Councillor Plot was not there?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Plot was not here, so Councillor Plot, you don't get to vote on this.
Sorry, Councillor Plot.
All right, so we do have a motion on the table. So Councillor Berg, I believe you're just still in the queue. Okay. I'm not seeing anybody in the queue. I will say that I will be voting against this, as I voted against first and second reading, and just why that is I really do get the idea of we want to be responsive to market forces, and when there's industry and buyers are telling us they want to buy a certain type of development in a neighborhood, I get why we always want to be really responsive to that. And in any other neighborhood, well, I should say any, but in almost any other neighborhood, I'd be very okay with this. However, for me, this neighborhood is different because it's sitting right across the street from hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars in public investment in the form of high schools, the community knowledge campus. We've got surfs there, we've got rinks there, we've got the Eastlink Center there. And for me, this land is valuable because it's so close to that public investment. And I think because it's public dollars, we as the public representatives should have more influence in this than we might feel appropriate elsewhere. Yet right now, it would be really nice to expand our tax base a little bit as quickly as possible and create these jobs as quickly as possible. So I get right now why we want this. But when I think about the city 30, 40, 50 years from now, and when I hope this area is completely built out, I don't think there's going to be residents saying, we sure wish there was a little bit more commercial in this area. I think there's going to be residents saying, we sure wish there was a little bit more housing in direct proximity to one of the central areas of our community. And so, therefore, I don't think I'll be voting in support of this. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Councillor Bressie. I guess I'm opposite of you. I will be voting in favor of this based on exactly the reasons that you're against it. I do think that people do like to have services nearby them, convenience stores, restaurants, and I look at larger cities. Being away on holidays for a wedding this fall in Toronto, there is countless residential developments that are tied near commercial amenities. So for me, I think it's walkability. It is, you don't have to get in your car and drive halfway across town. I just think it works for people who live by these amenities. And in some cases, when there isn't amenities, people struggle. And that's why in not too recent past, we're dealing with, changes to development permits.
Thank you. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bressie. I think I will be voting against this as well, similar to yourself. I do see large swaths, according to the map, of yet undeveloped commercial property. I know that within that area as well, there is also currently some serviced but undeveloped commercial property. So similar to Councillor Bressie, we do have a significant investment. We want people to live near that. And it's not as though there isn't other commercial property within the immediate vicinity already available. So to take out potential residential sites without, I guess, to pull it out while there are other alternatives for commercial property, I struggle with that. So again, if you look at the map right along Wapiti Road, there's many acres yet of land directly across the street. I also believe there's undeveloped land. So it's not like it's a scarcity within that area. So I think we should, in my opinion, stick with the original plan.
Thank you. I see Mayor Clayton with her hand up, and when she goes, that'll be the closing. So I just want to make sure nobody else wants to get in before I recognize Mayor Clayton. All right, Mayor Clayton to close.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I encourage Council to support this. I remind you that there is 6 acres of serviced multifamily land there and already 1 acre of serviced commercial land. This land has sat since 2014, I think it is, serviced while no one developed it with multifamily. And now we have an opportunity to have a client who will be paying taxes on developed commercial land. There's lots of land there still for multifamily as we go down the road. And the land adjacent, if I know what you're talking about, Councillor Berg, is already owned by a developer and potentially a future grocery store. There's lots of space there for future multifamily. And right now there's a good mix. It looks good in there. It's mixing well between commercial and residential. And I encourage Council to support this.
Thank you. And that was to close, so I will call it to question. I'll call it to question. Sorry, I'm going to call a revote. This time I was guilty of the revote. Nobody told me that chairing council was harder than chairing committee. And Mayor Clayton, are you willing to keep on moving down the list?
Sorry, I just had to unmute. You betcha. I would move that council. That was third reading. What do you need from me?
Sorry, that was third reading of the land use bylaw amendment. Now we need third reading.
Sorry, I see the rest now.
Yeah.
So I'd move that council give third reading to bylaw C-1066-14, being an amendment to the Southwest Area Structure Plan.
Thank you. That's definitely in order. I'm not seeing anybody asking to speak, so I will call that to question. And then if you'll do one more, Mayor Clayton.
You betcha. I would move the council give third reading to bylaw C-1383B, being an amendment to the Stone Ridge Outline Plan.
You. And that motion carries. So that wraps up unfinished business. We don't have any notice of motion. I don't think anybody wants a recess. We don't have more delegations, public hearings, which brings us all the way down to council member reports. And I will start with Councillor Thiessen.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Your Worship, Deputy Chair Bressie. I like this. Anyways, great job tonight on hosting this meeting while Mayor Clayton was out of town. Last 2 weeks.
Sorry, Councillor Thiessen, I'm just going to cut you off for 1 second just because I see Mayor Clayton's hand up and I want to make sure I didn't miss something in the earlier part of the meeting.
Ooh, they may want to talk first.
No, sorry. All I wanted to say, I appreciate that. I'm going to jump off now. I have a previously scheduled commitment. And so I think Councillor Plott and I both are going to jump off as we have a meeting.
Would either one of you like to do roundtable before you go, or are you good to go?
I don't have mine in front of me, so I won't. Thank you.
No, I'm good as well. Thanks, Chair Bressie.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Sorry to cut you off, Councillor Thiessen.
That's okay. I thought that they were going to leave anyways, but it's good to know that they're gone now because I can talk about the secret stuff that maybe they didn't want to hear. No, the last 2 weeks have been really good. Super populated with, all the good things that is Grande Prairie. So for me, I got to teach Hillside grade sixers inside the school all about municipal government, what makes us tick. The legislation that guides us, and I even had them doing a little bit of dreaming too, how they might be able to shape the city of Grande Prairie if they were in our shoes. So that is always a great time. And then from there, I think the other notable events to really talk about is the Grand North Winter Festival was an incredible time. I think our staff in InvestGP and Parks and otherwise, anyone who was involved, kudos to them, big kudos, because it truly was a standout event that I think everyone appreciated. And every time I went to, whether it was Muskosipi Park for sledding, or whether it was to go through the ice maze just across the street at the Montrose Cultural Center, or hitting up 5440, there's always a good crowd, and people are really happy. And that's why we do what we do a lot of the times, especially in the realm of eventing, is about making people feel good about where they're at and the place that they chose to live. And so kudos to our staff for putting together a primetime event that I look forward to year over year over year in participating in. Besides that, we all got away. I'm sure everyone will have their own little takeaway from our strategic planning getaway that we were gone for last week. I personally enjoyed a lot of the visioning and the check-in to see if we're still on the right track when it comes to our strategic priorities. And it was especially great to get to meet some of our new team members and get to know them a little bit better, as well as we integrate them into this family that we call the city of Grande Prairie. So it was really, really great. From there, Councillor O'Connor and I got to take in the first annual Pirates Gala fundraiser, and they did a bang-up job. Almost 300 people showed up for that. I really thought when I said yes to this event that I might be going to 100, 120. Usually that's how these first-time galas start out. Well, unless you're the Friendship Center, and then you sell the whole Bow Center out. But in this case, there was almost 300 people that were in attendance, and the fundraising was good. And don't worry, Mike and I, unsupervised, weren't making promises that council can't keep. So there's that. Finally, I'd just like to send out a shout out for the next week and a bit ahead. It is Literacy Week going through our schools. So if you got a chance, Councillor Toole, you got 10 grandkids or something like that. I probably read to them all the time, but an extra incentive to get out and read to them.
I'll be reading on Wednesday at Ivy Maclet. Thank you.
Right on. And I think many members of our community, if you get the opportunity to read to your kids, read to your spouse, read to other kids going to schools. I know I'm fully booked up. I've got about 6 engagements at different schools this week, so it should be really, really fun because you know, if you don't read, how can you learn? So we should encourage our kids in the learning settings to improve upon their reading skills and to read to each other. So happy Literacy Week, everybody. I look forward to reading some lines, and I look forward to hearing about you reading yours too. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
What happened to the zigzag thing?
Well, I was
go back and forth.
I was hoping Mayor Clay would be here to see us do this in a sensible manner, but...
So I will talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done in common. One of the things that I think several of us did in the last couple of weeks was we taped ourselves, or we were taped reading to a virtual audience. I was really astonished to learn that The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is available as a picture book, and you can read the entire novel in like 10 minutes. So that was what I did. My intention was actually to read a couple of chapters for an older audience, but oddly enough, they didn't have the full novel in the library, only the picture book. So that was different. And the flash, or the light that they're, you know, the bright light that they're shining in your eyes while you're reading, it exploded while I was reading, and there was this horrendous bang like a gunshot. And no one in the library came to check to see if I was alive. So maybe they were hopeful, I don't know. I really appreciated, while we were in Edmonton last week, I really appreciated the fact that we got to meet with a few Edmonton City councillors, that we got to travel to Camrose and have some good discussion with the City of Camrose, both with their Chief of Police, their Police Commission, and with their City Council regarding how they feel about having a municipal police force. It was good information, and they're very pleased with their choice. So it was good to know that. I also really enjoyed the opportunity to meet with our new staff members and to welcome them to the team. I'm really excited about the evolution in Grande Prairie, how we're going to see some really great things happening through the city of Grande Prairie because we've hired a great team to work with us. And finally, I walk at the Eastlink Centre on the track all winter long, but lately I've been going back in the evening, basically to get my butt out of the chair and my face out of the fridge. And I've noticed something that really warms my heart, and I want to thank the Eastlink staff, and I also want to thank current or previous councillor Lauren Radburn, because I know that 10 years ago, it was really important to him that there always be drop-in space at the Eastlink Centre. And when I go there in the evening now, the field house is full of people who are simply dropping in to play whatever they feel like, engaging in unorganized play, which is something that we all talk about being important, but we don't really see it. We see a lot more effort going into organized play or team sports. And so it warms my heart, and I hope that it warms Councillor Radburn's heart as well, that was a great decision that a council made 10 years ago, and I am pleased to see all of those big and small children running about in chaos.
Thank you. And because I always listen to Councillor Blackmore, at least almost always, I'm going to go with Councillor Bosch.
Oh, wow. That's a significant zigzag.
I got zagged.
Thank you, Councillor Bressy. For me, some of us attended the Tourism Alberta Destination Zone Development Strategic Planning. That's a mouthful. That was an all-day thing talking about our region and how we can increase tourism to this region. We just need to get out there. We need to get out there as not only the city, but our fellow municipalities beside us and come together as a group. So that was a long day, a strong day though, and we'll see some strides in tourism here in the near future. I was lucky to attend the Grand North Festival. That was fun. It's always fun. Although when you end up smelling like a, outdoor fire, I would have preferred a hot dog with it, but, they had drinks there, so I guess some people went for that. So music, ice bar, the fires, lots of entertainment. And then the next day, I got to go out to all 3 sites and check out the festivities for the festival. Additionally, I was able to go and just pop into the Municipal Police Service Review open house. And I urge anybody to, if you have any thoughts about this upcoming review that City Council is looking at doing or is doing with our police force, and whether we, continue with our beloved RCMP or move to a municipal force, that it's a big thing to discuss, and we do want everybody's opinion. Again, the strategic check-in, that was great. We're on track. Happy to see that after a year that we continue to be on track and we're not in left field somewhere. And of course, our visit to Camrose, as Councillor Blackmore said, and checking things out as, living examples of what they go through as a community, and then meeting some of our compadres from Edmonton from City Council. That was really good too. The more we get together as a region and, throughout our province, I think that is good work to bring more and more, advantageous things to Grande Prairie, for lack of better words. Thank you.
And I'm going to go with Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I attended the Alberta Bilingual Municipalities Executive Meeting. We talked about a number of things that are coming up, and they will be in full representation at the Growing the North concert, as far as I'm aware. The Community Futures Board, we had a meeting and talked about some incentives and some funding that has been lost, but Community Futures is growing strong. I can give a breakdown at next meeting as the businesses that we have supported, not the names, but the numbers. And there's going to be a Lemonade Day coming up, and another items that will be coming up in the future. What are all supporters of one is for Native women and men to apply for business grants. There is a group or funding for just women, and there is funding for children. So there'll be some interesting conversations about that. And once again, I attended I was with all of you guys for the last week, so I'm sure our stories are all going to match that we had an enjoyable time and we loved each other's company all the time. But I also want to thank the administration that showed up and presented themselves at our strategic plan. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'll go with Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. So a few things as far as committees go. I had my first meeting with the Peace Library System. It's a network of libraries throughout the entire Peace Country where you could check out books anywhere. So there's an interchange of books and materials and information right across the Peace Country. So it's extremely valuable. The meeting, for the most part, was about policy updating, so hardly thrill a minute, but required work nonetheless. Strat planning, again, it was excellent. I am so excited about the team that we are building here, and the future is looking very bright, and I know we're going to get a lot of work done, and we've got a terrific team behind us. Coming back, although this isn't official business, but we had a blast as far as Travel Alberta goes. Councillor Bressie and I dragged Councillor O'Connor to every whistle stop, thrift shop, and everywhere coming back. So every time that you come back and you do the drive from Edmonton and you want to stop somewhere, guys, and your wife says no, we did that. We stopped at just about every place along the highway. I think it took a couple or 3 extra hours, but we got our Travel Alberta points in good. And I don't know if Councillor O'Connor will recover anytime soon, but it was a lot of fun and a lot of laughs, and should be made into a movie sometime in the next year. Around tourism, Councillor Bosch touched on it. Tourism destination zone development. We had all the grand poobahs with Travel Alberta here in town, and I've mentioned it before, but there's a new direction that Travel Alberta is taking, not just marketing, but also tourism development. So they're coming in and they're looking for people around the Peace Country that want to develop tourist destinations and tourist experience, and help them grow and give them guidance. And they've hired a couple of firms that have done amazing jobs across North America in developing tourism destination. And so it's exciting to see that come to our city and our region. Grand North Winter Festival. I managed to get in one day. I was out of town a fair bit over the past few weeks. But the Grand North Winter Fest, once again, whoever's booking the weather, great job. That's 2 years in a row. One of the things that I genuinely appreciate too is this year we added some hoarfrost to the festival, and it was great seeing so many people share their images of the trees in the background with people just really enjoying themselves. One of the nice things for me is I was invited to do some ice carving. As you may well know, that I am a sculptor, but I've never experienced ice carving before. And the guys, the professionals that were there, gave me some wonderful direction. And it was a wonderful experience for me. It took me about 3 hours to complete my sculpture. And in the end, they integrated it with theirs, which was very flattering for me. So thank you to the city council team that, the administration with the city that put the event on and made it run so smooth, bringing in so many wonderful experiences that it's heartwarming when you attend it, hearing the laughter of the kids and the parents sitting around, and for the most part, it was a free event. So a home run once again, and it was built on a successful year 1. So I'm really excited to see what happens for year 3. And with that, Chair Bressie, that's my report.
Thank you. And Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you very much. How do you follow that, eh? First off, we've had an employee that was with us for 31 years, and I'd like to do a shout out to Robert Carroll, who spent 31 years. Last Friday was his last day. So good on you, Robert. You did an excellent job. When we were down in Edmonton, got to meet with City Council, got to meet with Camrose City Council. It was a tremendous bonding experience, and they were so open and receptive to us, and I really enjoyed all the discussion. Went down there and we visited a soccer dome, and it was incredible. Didn't realize how large these things are and how bright they are, and I can certainly see that in the future being part of our community. And then of course, the Grand North Festival, I was blown away. I went there on the Friday night expecting, just to stand by a fire, and then people started collecting in, and this electric dance music went on, and I felt my chest. It was good and healthy for me. It was vibrating so much I felt my chest move. Anyway, there I am dancing up a storm. I really enjoyed it. The entertainment, I hope this goes on for years to come because it was appreciated. So kudos to the staff for organizing this event. We are truly a winter city, and you could see it from every aspect. And the ice sculptors really blew me away. They were just so skillful. And then we get Grantberg come along, and he shows, hey, I can do this. And he did. So kudos to you. And today I was able to kick off Reading Week for about 11 people at the Grande Prairie Public Library. And I read 5 stories. And it was amazing. And I had people coming up to me, people that were working in the library saying, wow, that made me appreciate my job being a librarian. So what a great thing. So kudos, thank you very much. And thanks to administration, welcome to the team.
Thank you. And for me, the 2 things I'll highlight that I don't think were mentioned was I got to take part in Try It Day, which is an awesome day organized by our local sports connection for kids get to go try sports for free. I got to send my kids off to tumbling and trampoline, and I got to, along with my son and some people from the Ultimate Club, run a session where it was half ultimate frisbee, half disc golf. And so it was very much appreciated, both getting to have my own kids try new sports and be able to share sports with other kids. And one of mine said he discovered his new favorite sport. So that's what I think that day is really about. And I hope that hundreds of other kids got to go home and say the same thing. So thank you to the Sport Connection and all the dozens or hundreds of volunteers that make Try It Day happen. I got to attend the ceremony for the Platinum Jubilee medal that got awarded to Mr. Duff Carrar, and that was great to get to see Duff honored and also get to hear, I'm sure if you know Duff, you know that there was some interesting musing on the history of our region that went along with that, and so interesting to have a conversation about history and chaplaincy and our First Nations contributions to our community, and it was a fascinating day. And those are the only 2 things I want to report, but I also want to echo welcome to the new staff we have on board. I know that Council's very excited for the team that we get to work with right now. So welcome aboard, everybody. And with that, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.